There are 9 important question types in optics and EM waves that one should pay close attention to for JEE Mains. Starting with a question type on basics of traveling EM waves, here you will be expected to use your basic understanding of the electric and magnetic fields in the EM waves. For example, the fact that E cross B gives you the direction of travel or propagation of wave, or the fact that the sinusoidal part of the electric and magnetic fields is the same, or the fact that the phase of the sine or cosine term gives you the direction of propagation of wave, the angular wave number, and the angular frequency. Note that the speed of propagation of wave is equals to omega by k, k being the angular wave number, or we can say the speed of wave is equals to lambda times frequency f. Now also note that the speed of the EM wave, which depends on the medium properties, that is the permeability mu and permittivity epsilon, is given by 1 by square root of mu times epsilon. Or we can write it in terms of relative permeability and relative permittivity as C by square root of mu r times epsilon r, which means that the refractive index n of the medium, which is defined as C by V, C being the speed of the EM wave in vacuum and V being the speed of the wave in the given medium. So n can be written as square root of mu r times epsilon r. And before we move on, note that the electric field energy density half epsilon E square and magnetic field energy density B square by 2 mu are equal in magnitude at all points in space at all times. So read through the notes carefully and solve a few questions. Moving on to the next important question type, here you will be either asked to determine fringe width or angular fringe width for a monochromatic source of a given wavelength lambda, or you will be asked to establish the change in fringe pattern as the incident wavelength is changed, or you will be asked to establish the maximum number of maximas observed on the screen for a given Young's double slit experiment setup. Now in the next important question type, here you will be tested on your understanding of intensity of EM wave, which is simply energy passing through a unit area in unit time, and you will be tested on your understanding of how intensity of unpolarized or polarized EM wave changes as it passes through a polarizer. Now I would recommend that you read through the notes carefully, but remember that intensity is proportional to square of the amplitude of EM wave. And yes, practice questions to make sure that you feel comfortable with such questions. In the following important question type, you will be given a light ray that passes through 2 or more interfaces, and you will be given that it undergoes total internal reflection at 1 or more of the interfaces, and you will be asked to determine information about some of the involved angles. Fairly simple and straightforward application of Snell's law. Just make sure that you correctly work out the involved geometry. Moving on, in the next question type, we will be dealing with the ray passing through the given prism and undergoing minimum deviation. Here make sure that you revisit the relation between deviation delta and angles I1, I2 and apex angle A. Recall that delta is equals to I1 plus I2 minus A, which simplifies to 2i minus A for minimum deviation. Note that in case of minimum deviation, I and A are related by sin I is equals to mu times sine of A by 2, with mu being the refractive index of the prism. Also remember that in case of thin prisms, meaning apex angle is small, incident angle for minimum deviation reduces to mu times A by 2, or we can say minimum deviation is equal to mu minus 1 times apex angle A. So go through the questions to get more comfortable. Now in the next important question type, you might be asked to determine the focal length of a lens whose refractive index and radius of curvature for the two surfaces are given. Recall that 1 by f is equals to mu by mu medium minus 1 times 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Now make sure that you apply the sign convention correctly to R1 and R2. Moving on, in the next important question type, you might be tested on your understanding of diamagnetic, paramagnetic, and ferromagnetic materials. So read through the notes to make sure that you have all the key information on your tips. In the next one, you will be tested on your understanding of the relations for maxima and minima in Young's double slit experiment. So read through the notes and solve few questions. Now in the last important question type, you might be given the expression for electric or magnetic field of an EM wave, and you will be asked to determine the other. Recall that given the electric field vector, we can determine magnetic field vector by using B is equals to V cross E divided by square of magnitude of speed V. And if you are given magnetic field vector B, you can determine the electric field vector using E is equals to B cross V. In case you are not very sure about these, I would recommend that you go through the notes and solve few questions to get confident. With that, best wishes for questions on optics and EM waves for your JEE Main exam.